Hi. What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome to today's live Shakespeare April Fest Part 3 of A Midsummer Night's Dream, William Shakespeare. You might be wondering, what is going on today? Why can't you see me very well? Well, let me show you. Oh my goodness. We created a little reading tent today. So before we begin, I just want to show you how easy it is to get creative. You just take 4 chairs. You see those chairs behind me? There's one there, one over there. Wait. And there's 2 over here on either side of me. And with my son, we found a sheet that had like flowers and like trees and some butterflies representing the forest. And so today we have our little reading tent. Get creative with your kids, with your students, make it interesting, make it fun, right? So we've gone through quite a bit of this story. And what I'd like to do before I begin reading chapter 7 is just to give you a little, let's say, summary of what's going on, because it can get pretty complicated with all of these characters, right? So at the very beginning of the story, we had the Duke of Athens and we had the Amazon Queen. We had Theseus and Hippolyta, right? So these 2 guys, right? Hippolyta and Theseus, they're getting married in 4 days. Okay, so they're very happy. Yay, we're getting married, right? And in the middle of all of this, Aegeus comes in to speak to Theseus. Now, he has a problem. So pretty much these 2 people, right, Hippolyta and Theseus, they're pretty much out of the picture right now. So let's put them aside, right? So Aegeus comes in, he's got a problem, right? He's a father of a very beautiful girl, and he's having father-daughter issues. And his daughter is Hermia. Okay. So, father-daughter, right? Now, Hermia loves Lysander. So, Hermia and Lysander are the couple right here, right? See? Hermia and Lysander. Aegeus now is upset because he doesn't want Lysander to marry his daughter. I'm probably going to have to go through this at one point during my life with my daughter too. But I'm not going to threaten her with death as he did, obviously. So we have Hermia and Lysander, right, who are in love, right, and they want to get married. So let's put Aegeus, the father, to the side. Now this is where it gets kind of tricky. So there's another couple now. Hermia has a really good friend, Helena. Okay, and Helena is with Demetrius. Okay, Helena and Demetrius. Wait, can't show them very well. Hold on. Hello, everyone. Welcome. So we have these 2 couples. Okay, and what happens is Hermia and Helena, who are friends, there's this like love triangle craziness going on because, let me show you. Helena is running after Demetrius all the time. Like, she's head over heels and she always goes after him. But Demetrius, right, he loves Hermia, right? And as we saw last time, this whole big issue came up because there's this little mischief fairy called Puck. Puck made a big mistake. What Puck did was he put love juice on Demetrius. And he wasn't supposed to. He was really supposed to do it to Lysander. But he didn't do it. And so Demetrius goes head over heels with the love juice that Puck gave him. And Puck at the same time puts love juice on Lysander. But the two of them, right, go after Hermia. And this is where this big problem happens with these two couples. And we're going to see now in chapter 7. At the same time, right, we have Oberon, the king of the fairies, who's married to Titania. And Titania, Oberon does the same thing to his wife Titania, puts love juice on her eyes. She wakes up and falls in love with Nick Bottom, one of the guys in the play who's performing, one of the performers. And for those of you who remember what happened with Nick Bottom, Puck, yes, Mr. Puck, casted a spell on Nick Bottom and turned his head into a donkey. So Tatiana is basically in love with a donkey-headed human named Nick the Donkey Bottom. Okay, so why am I showing this to you? Because when we're reading with our students, it's good to find on the internet some characters, some visual prompts. It's very easy just to tape it with a little straw so you can show it with your students. And I found also a really cool map of all of the characters and how it's all intertwined with who loves who is enchanted with the other person. So this is also something great to share with your students, so they can have like a little caricature map of what's going on. Okay, so I really like it in here. It's really cozy. Let me get comfortable here. Wait a second. Oh, because I'm too big. We made this for a child, not for an adult. All right, chapter 7. It was after midnight by the time Puck arrived at the glade. "Ah, Puck," said the fairy king, when his servant appeared. "There you are. Tell me, has Tatiana fallen in love yet?" "She has indeed, my lord," said the fairy with a proud grin. "She is in love with a monster." Oberon raised an eyebrow. "A monster, you say?" Puck nodded. "I came across a group of craftsmen who were rehearsing a play near Titania's cave," explained the fairy. "When one of them was out of sight of the others, I cast a spell on him, and I turned his head into a donkey's head. His terrified friends ran screaming into the wood, and the noise woke the queen. When Titania saw the donkey-headed craftsman, she fell in love immediately." The king smiled. "Well done, Puck," he said, patting the fairy on the back. "You did a fine job. Now what about the Athenian gentleman? Did you find him?" "Oh, I did, my lord," answered the fairy. "He was asleep in the glade and—" "Shh! Quiet, quiet, quiet," said Oberon suddenly. "I hear voices. Quick, quick, let's hide behind the tree." The king and the fairy hid behind a large oak tree and watched as a young man and a young woman entered the glade. They appeared to be in the middle of an argument. "For the last time, where is he, Demetrius?" yelled Hermia. Sorry. "Lysander would never leave me alone in the wood at night." "What have you done with him? Did you kill him?" "If you did, then you might as well kill me too." "I didn't kill him, Hermia," said Demetrius. "I don't know where he is." Hermia's eyes shone with anger in the silvery moonlight. "You'd better be telling me the truth, Demetrius," she cried. The girl turned to leave, and Demetrius grabbed her arm. "Where are you going?" he said. "You shouldn't be wandering around this wood alone at night. It could be dangerous." "I have to find my Lysander," said Hermia. "Let me go." She was really in love with him. The young man kneeled down in front of the woman he loved. "Please, Hermia, I beg you, forget about Lysander," said Demetrius. "I love you more than he ever could. Marry me, and you'll be the happiest woman that ever lived. I'm not going to marry you, Demetrius, said Hermia. I love Lysander, and I'll never forget about him. I'm going to look for him. Please don't follow me. With that, Hermia exited the glade and exited the glade. Sorry. When the light, this is one of the things. When you create one of these atmospheres, you have to have really good lighting so you don't make mistakes when you read. Okay, so that's a tip for when you create a reading tent. Make sure you have really good lighting so you could read well. So, with that, Hermia exited the glade, and Demetrius lay down on the ground. Hurt by Hermia's refusal to marry him, the heartbroken young man closed his eyes and fell asleep. Puck, whispered Oberon, why is this young man still in love with that woman? Man, didn't you, come on, Puck, didn't you pour the liquid into his eyes like I told you to? Puck frowned. I did do as you asked, my lord, but I think I have put the liquid in the wrong man's eyes. Oberon looked horrified. What? He exclaimed. Puck, you've made a terrible mistake. I'm sorry, my lord, said the fairy. That's okay. We have to fix this, said Oberon. Go find Helena of Athens and use your magic to lead her back to the glade. In the meantime, I'll put the love potion in this young man's eyes. When he wakes up, his heart will belong to Helena. Go quickly. Yes, sire, said the fairy as he ran across the glade. Oberon walked quickly to the sleeping Demetrius and poured the liquid onto his eyelids. He cast a spell on the young man to make sure that he would fall in love with Helena and then return to his hiding place. It was not long before Puck joined him. I'm back, sire, said the fairy, out of breath. Helena is following close behind. She's with the other young Athenian man. Good, said Oberon. Let's see what happens. The king and his servant watched as Helena and Lysander entered the glade. But I do love you, Helena, said Lysander. Why don't you believe me? Why are you doing this, Lysander? Cried Helena. Yes. And I, at the beginning, misspoke because I showed you that Demetrius and Lysander were going after Hermia. It was Helena, not Hermia. You see, it's very complicated. I'm back, sire, said the fairy out of breath. So, Oberon wanted to see what's going to happen. The king and his servant watched as Helena and Lysander entered the glade. But I do love you, Helena, said Lysander. Why won't you believe me? Why are you doing this, Lysander? Cried Helena. Do you enjoy making fun of me? Lysander frowned. I'm not making fun of you, Helena. I love you. You don't love me, shouted Helena. You love Hermia. You're planning to marry her. But Hermia means nothing to me, protested Lysander. The arguing now woke Demetrius, and he sat up. He stared at Helena as if he were seeing her for the first time. Then he jumped to his feet and rushed towards her. Helena, he cried. Helena turned to look at the young man. Demetrius! Darling Helena, said Demetrius as he took her hands in his. You look like an angel in this soft moonlight. Helena's jaw dropped open. What? She said. My sweet Helena, continued Demetrius, you are so beautiful. I cannot bear to be apart from you any longer. Helena was shocked. She looked at Demetrius, then at Lysander, and then at Demetrius, and then at Lysander. Oh, she got dizzy looking at both of the gentlemen who were after her. Are you my... Sorry, wait a minute. Lost my place by looking both ways. Helena was shocked. Looking back and forth at Demetrius and Lysander, she said, I see what's going on here. You're both mocking me. You're both mocking me. Do you both hate me that much? Helena started crying, and Lysander put his arm around her shoulders. Are you mocking Helena? The young man asked Demetrius. Everyone knows you're in love with Hermia. You can have Hermia, Demetrius. I'm in love with Helena now. If I ever did love Hermia, then all that love is gone, said Demetrius. My heart has returned home to Helena. He's lying, Helena, said Lysander. Don't believe a word he says. While both men were trying to convince the sobbing Helena, poor Helena, that they truly loved her, Hermia arrived at the glade. Dun, dun, dun. Now this is where it gets exciting. This should be interesting, said Puck with a grin. Puck. Lysander, cried Hermia when she set eyes on her fiancé. Where have you been? Why did you leave me? Lysander looked at Hermia, then turned his attention back to Helena. I had to follow my heart, he said. What does that mean? Asked Hermia. It means that I left you to find Helena, my true love. My true love. My one and only true love. Why did you come looking for me, Hermia? I don't want to be with you any more. Hermia stared at Lysander in amazement. What are you saying, Lysander? She exclaimed. Why are you speaking to me like this? Because I don't love you anymore, Hermia, said the young man. I love Helena now. Hermia turned to look at her friend. You've turned Lysander against me, she cried. I've done no such thing, said Helena. Lysander and Demetrius are playing some sort of trick on me. That's not true, said Lysander. I love you, Helena. So do I, said Demetrius. Prove it, said Lysander. I challenge you to a duel. Uh-oh. Demetrius removed his sword from its covering and waved it in the air. I accept your challenge, Lysander. Hermia grabbed Lysander's arm. Have you lost your mind? She cried. You love me. We were going to get married. I have no intention of marrying you, said Lysander coldly. I am going to marry Helena. Hermia's blue eyes filled with hatred, and she turned to look at Helena. How could you do this to me? She shouted as she marched up to the girl and puff! Slapped her across the face. Oh! Cried Helena. That's enough, said Demetrius as he pulled Hermia away from Helena. You're all crazy, shouted Helena, her eyes filling with tears. I'm leaving. With that, the girl ran off into the wood, sobbing uncontrollably. This matter must be settled now, said Lysander to Demetrius. It's time for the duel. I'm ready, said Demetrius. The two men marched into the wood, leaving a very confused Hermia behind in the glade. The girl sat down on the grass and buried her face in her hands. I can't believe this is happening, she said. Oberon shook his head. Oh, what an awful mess. We have to put everything right again. Puck, you must stop this duel. Follow the two young men into the wood and use your magical powers to create a thick fog so they can't see each other. Lead them and Helena back to the glade. And when all four of them are gathered here, cast another spell on them to make them all fall asleep. Then pour the love potion into Lysander's eyes and make sure Hermia is the first person he sees upon waking. Do you understand? I don't. This is a perfect example of teaching students. Don't give too much instruction all at once, because it is just going to Someone's going to make a mistake. Puck nodded. Yes, sire, he said, and bowed before the king. Good, said Oberon. I'll see you later. Then he left to go find Titania. So, he told Puck to do quite a lot of spell casting, right? And let's see if he's going to do it later on. In the meantime, do you remember Titania had the love potion put in her eyes by her hubby, Oberon, and she saw the donkey-headed bottom and fell in love? So, here they are, hand in hand. Sit here, my darling, said Titania, as she led Bottom to her bed of white flowers. The fairy queen sat down next to the donkey-headed weaver and kissed his long furry ears. Bottom was very happy. Is there anything you need, my dear? Asked Titania. Yes, there is. Could one of your servants scratch my back and the back of my head? It's a little itchy. I'll do it, said Peace Blossom. The fairy picked up a long, sharp stick and scratched Bottom's head with it. Ah, that's the spot, he said. My hair seems to have grown quite long. I think it's time for a haircut. The fairies laughed. Do you want to hear some music, my sweet love? Yes, why not? Replied the weaver. Titania clapped her hands, and Cobweb, the other fairy, pulled a small silver flute from his pocket. He put the flute on his lips and played the most beautiful melody Bottom had ever heard. Oh, that's lovely, he said. You're very talented, Cobweb. Are you hungry, my dear? Yes, I am. What would you like to eat? Bottom thought for a minute, and I suddenly have a strange craving for hay, which is quite unusual because I've never eaten it before. Could you please get me some hay? Titania frowned. Ooh, I'm not sure where we'd find hay in this wood, she said. Would you like some nuts and berries instead? Yes, nuts and berries would be fine, I suppose. Titania ordered Moth and Mustard Seed to collect as many nuts and berries as they could carry. I think I might have a little nap before my food arrives, said Bottom. It's almost sunrise, and I haven't slept at all. Sleep then, my darling. As she gently stroked the donkey's head, I will sleep beside you. The queen lay down next to Bottom, and within minutes they were asleep. Meanwhile, Puck and Oberon were making their way to Titania's cave. The young Athenians are all sound asleep, my lord, said Puck. Good job, Puck. He followed all of the instructions. When they wake up, Demetrius will love Helena and Lysander will love Hermia, and none of them will be able to remember what happened last night. Perfect, said Oberon. Did you meet with the queen? Asked Puck. Oberon nodded. I did. I ran into her at the riverbank about an hour ago. She was with that monstrous donkey creature. I told her I'd reverse the spell I cast on her if she agreed to give me the boy. And she did? The fairy wanted to know. She did, said the king. Yes, one of her fairies brought him to me a little while ago. Now I will reverse the spell as I promised. We're going to change the craftsman's head back to normal and cast a spell on him so that last night's events seem like nothing more than a strange dream. Yes, sire, that is what I will do. The fairy king and his servant entered Titania's cave and found the queen asleep on the bed next to Bottom. Oberon brushed Titania's hair away from her face and poured the love potion onto her eyes. Wake up, my beautiful queen, he whispered. Titania opened her eyes slowly. Oberon, she said, I had the strangest dream. I dreamt I fell in love with a donkey. Oberon grinned. Do you mean that donkey? He said, pointing to the sleeping bottom. Titania jumped up in shock. Oh, heavens, she cried. What is that thing doing in my bed? I'll explain everything to you later, my dear. It's almost sunrise, and we mustn't let the mortals see us. We must return to the castle. Puck will take care of the donkey man. The king led his queen out of the cave, while Puck cast a spell on Bottom. Then the fairy hurried out of the cave with Titania's servants following close behind. So, it seems that things are getting back to normal. It seems that Puck, who made the mistake at the beginning, has rectified his mistakes, right? Listening to Oberon. It seems that Lysander, Hermia, and Helena and Demetrius are all going to get the right love potion and fall in love the right way again. I don't know. We'll have to see next week on the 23rd of April what is going to be the outcome of this story. Until then, I hope you enjoyed today's read. Again, every time we think of reading with our students or our children, we have to make it as interesting and as creative as possible, right? So that's why I shared with you this particular arrangement today. When reading with your kids and your students, it's always interesting to create some visual prompts, especially if you're online, even face-to-face, right? To keep them engaged. You can have your students create their own visual prompts, and you can assign roles to your students so that they can read their lines and act out as some of the characters in the story, and to put emotion and energy into how they speak, right? You can use these videos as a little sample of how to change their voices, along with all of the other Friday reads and the storytelling examples that we have presented with you on our Facebook page. And again, it's always good to show a character map of what is going on, because Shakespeare likes to spice things up in his stories, right? In his plays. So it's always good to have something like this to show your students. I thank you once again for joining. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, a good afternoon, a good morning, a good evening for those of you joining around the world. Please share this next chapter that we have created, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful weekend also. Okay, bye.